Hello, I'm Pam Hansen. I'm doing a part 2 of the interview with my mom, Sally. We're down at Mom's home down in northwest Iowa, and it's been a beautiful day in June here, but hot. It was real calm this morning, and in fact we had breakfast out on the deck, but then the wind came up, as it usually does here, and now this evening it's quieted down again.
Which it usually does.
Yeah, but the thermometer's still up there pretty good, probably 88 or something, maybe about 88 I think. So in the previous video that you may have watched, if you haven't, you can go back to part 1 of our interview here. I talked to Mom a lot about her travel days with my dad and us kids when we were young, and all of the camping that we did and the places we went when we were younger, and how that was all managed back in the old days before trailers and even coolers. Forget electricity to plug into or sewer to hook up to. But now I wanted to continue on with some more information, because after my brother, sister, and I all graduated from high school and went out to college and moved on, Mom and Dad started going further afield and did more international travel.
Right.
So how did that evolve?
Well, again, we had always read a lot, and we read about other countries as well as our own. We looked at maps, looked at the National Geographic magazines, and we wanted to know more about other countries ourselves.
Mm-hmm. It makes sense, but not real common back then. That would have been like in, let's see, I graduated in 71, Jan was probably 74. So sometime
75, I think we went to Mexico first.
She always kept journals. Well, and sometimes Dad would write too, but mostly it was Mom's writing in here. This is an example of one of them, and it starts in 1975 with Mexico and Guatemala. And then there's a whole list of other places they went to. And then there's this volume that continues on. Lots of writing, because she writes lots of stories. And a bunch of them she did transcribe into.
Jan helped me.
Yeah. Into when you had a computer that you could do this on, and made them into big notebooks like this. So she has 2 notebooks that are full of different, each tab is a different location and a different year, and full of stories about places all over the world.
I started writing more journal-like than just a diary.
Yeah, so 75 was Mexico and Guatemala. 76 was Mexico to Rio. And Europe, I'm just reading through some of them. Belize, Honduras, Spain. That was the year that Britta was born.
Right.
India, Cameroon, Greece, Israel, and Egypt. Thailand, Zaire, which is now the Congo. Up to Alaska. They drove a van up to Alaska. Pakistan and China. You went through some places there that you would never want to go through now.
You couldn't go there now.
No. Japan, Kenya, Tanzania, Ajo, Arizona, Australia, New Zealand, other trips to Russia and Europe and Brazil and Italy, and all kinds of fun places to go. So she's really kept a very good record of them, and every now and then we stop and read some of these things, go through them.
They're a good reference if I want to know a little bit more about where it was we did that.
So she has 2 great big notebooks like this, full of those stories to refer back to. You've always been really good about writing that stuff down, and that's why Bob and I now, we keep a record as we go of places we are and things we do. So kind of rubbed off on us. when you've been traveling to other parts of the world, what kind of you didn't always just fly someplace and go on a tour. Never went on a tour.
A couple of times we went with groups. We went to
Yeah.
person to person.
Person to person, something to Japan, wasn't it?
Japan, yeah.
But most all of these travels to South America and Africa and Asia were on their own.
We would just buy a ticket to the country, and there was no way to make reservations other than your flight ahead of time. So we would have travel guides to help us along.
Yeah, by then there were more travel guides.
Yes. Beautiful one of South America.
Oh, really?
Yes.
So, yeah, they would just see what they could stumble upon after they left an airport.
And we moved when we wanted to and stayed put when we wanted to.
And you did have some places, people to visit sometimes that would help you out with transportation, like picking you up from the airport or.
When we went to England, Richard and Rita picked us up at the airport.
And that brings up the topic of they met so many people all over the world while they were going through, because they didn't stay at the fancy hotels. Would you? What would you look for in a hotel?
Availability and how the locality and the price.
Yeah. And sometimes they were good and sometimes they weren't.
Right. Yeah, there's all kinds.
Yeah. What did you find, like, were there countries where you would arrive that it was hard to even find a hotel?
Occasionally. Once when we went to Greece, it was a big holiday and everything was full. We ended up staying in a private home that
really?
people rented out for the occasion.
Oh, yeah. So you got to know a lot of people because you traveled on the buses. And what kinds of different transportation did you use? A lot of buses.
A lot of buses. In Europe, it was a lot of trains. They were very good and prompt, dependable. Planes, of course, to get across the oceans. What else did we talk about?
A cart.
Oh, I think in China, I believe it was China, where we had a horse cart and we just sat on a wagon type thing. And
Yeah.
there was something else.
Shoot, that was the year that you guys, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but you went to India maybe
Yes.
first, and then went by bus and train up to Pakistan, Nepal and Pakistan, and crossed the border to China at the Khyber Pass.
Khyber Pass.
And so then they were on the far west side of China, and they made their way all the way across China to the eastern coast. You were with Richard and Rita then.
Part of the time we were, yes. We met Richard and Rita on a bus in Mexico.
Oh, really?
We were riding the same bus, and there weren't too many gringos on there. It was a local bus, and they borrowed our travel guidebook. So that's how we started getting acquainted. We stayed in the same town and moved along together for a while, and after that we kept in close touch for years and years.
And they came here to visit you.
And we visited them in England, and now their home is in Scotland, and we visited there. One other transportation was the ship,
Oh, yeah.
the cargo ship that we went on.
Yeah, so-
we were on it for a month and traveled from England around France and Spain, clear over to Israel, and stopped over in Cairo and Greece and Italy, and back to England again.
So this was your style of cruise ship.
Right.
They would never really like to be engaged in, like high profile trips and tours. And when they figured out this freighter sort of travel, but you said that they have room for passengers on these shipping.
Limited number. There were only between 7 and 10, I think, and number would change because some people would go only a short distance.
And there was a cook on there.
Oh yes, we had beautiful meals there.
Yeah. And then they had the decks to walk around on. And I remember seeing some pictures where they had lots and lots of cars.
They carried a lot of cars,
Yeah.
automobiles to move from country to country,
Yeah.
and it was very interesting.
It was a pretty big ship.
Yes, it was. I
Wow.
think it was 10 stories high.
Oh, really?
Underneath, yeah.
Yeah. So that's another interesting one.
Yes.
Water buffalo?
No,
No.
no yaks or camels. Oh, we did ride a camel.
You did ride a camel in Egypt.
in Egypt for a
Yeah.
very short distance.
Yeah. Dugout canoe?
We crossed the river in Zaire, Congo, on river boats.
Yeah.
Small ones.
Yeah. And then sometimes, like especially when you were in Zaire for a whole year, or someplace for 3 months, you had got your own form of transportation. Some
Well,
kind of
there was
car. Or,
we were volunteering on a Methodist station, and we were there for a year, as she said. And there was a Land Rover that belonged to the mission, and we got to drive it once in a while to town.
so what did you do when
We
you
also
were?
went to town on a bicycle.
Oh, really?
Yes.
What were you doing there when you were away for a whole year?
We were helping to construct some school buildings. The ones that they were using were just primitive thatch roof pole buildings, kind of, and they got money to build cement buildings with good metal roofs and something that they could have for a longer time. And we were there because the full-time mission couple that worked there and lived there was due for a leave at home, furlough, and they wanted somebody there to know what was going on a little bit while they were away. So that's what we filled in for.
So how did? Well, both of you worked on projects there, but how did you communicate? Was there a lot of English spoken?
Not a lot, but we had translators that would help. There were
Okay.
2 or 3 people that were pretty regular and helped us out.
And didn't you take French lessons?
I took French when I was in college for a
I
little
thought
while.
you did when you were back there in Zaire. No.
Oh yes, one of the local teachers, I contracted with him to teach me French, and almost every day we would meet and have a little lesson, and that helped me. In fact, when we left the country, they had a farewell dinner for us. Remember the picture of the
Yeah.
big
Lots of
dish
food,
pan full of
a great big
rice.
buffet. Yeah.
And I made a little speech in French.
Oh, did you
Yes,
really?
I did.
didn't know that.
I think I have a copy of it
Well,
somewhere.
good for you. Well, because had French been a language used there?
It was Belgian,
It was Belgian property.
and they're one of their languages is French.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And we didn't catch on to very much of the local language.
Yeah. Yeah. You said you knew some French, which is very helpful. And you were in a lot of Spanish-speaking countries. So did you pick up some of that?
Yes, for me, Spanish is the easiest. It reads easier and sounds easier, although most people speak way too fast.
Yeah.
And so we picked up enough of that. I remember reading parts of newspapers once in
Really?
a while,
Yeah.
because they say newspapers are printed in
Yeah.
6th grade language.
Yeah. And when you're surrounded with Spanish, for example, you really start picking up more words, phrases
Right.
that you can pick out of a conversation. Even if they're talking fast, you can maybe
Right.
find a word here and there so you know what they're talking about.
I remember being in a small cafe that must have been somewhere in Spain. And we were sitting in one place, and there was another a group of people sitting nearby, and I could hear what they were saying. And it came to me that I understood a whole sentence.
Oh, yeah.
It was awakening.
That's fun.
Yeah.
So, what did you think about food? Because where you were traveling, it was all different, all over the world.
Yes.
What were some of the delicacies or things that? I remember you talking about going in Thailand in the Golden Triangle on a excursion.
Oh, yes.
And you went to some kind of a wedding party at one of they were staying in the little
Local
tribal
homes.
villages. That would be real unusual.
Yes.
I wonder what they were eating.
I don't recall that, and I might have to read my notes.
Yeah, you have to go
To
back and look at your
remember.
notes. Yeah. How about in Southeast Asia and China?
Well, usually it was a lot of rice or noodles. It would depend on if they had wheat locally, they could have the noodles. And China was very good because they fixed fresh food. Stir fries are fresh.
Yeah.
And I remember leaving Nepal and India, and there the food was not the best, not memorable anyway. And when we got to China, we were really glad to have some good fresh meals.
That was good. Yeah. And then in Europe, I'm sure you sampled a lot of different
Yes, and we
types of
all
food.
have those on our own tables sometimes.
Yeah.
Derivatives.
Yeah, today you fixed sweet and sour pork
Right.
over rice, and that was something you would have never cooked before.
Probably not.
But you do now. So, yeah, you learn a lot about different cuisine,
Yes.
no matter where you go. Can you think of any like special places or experiences that you would like to share?
Did you have anything in mind?
I think you talked. Well, this would be a place that you wanted to go back to. One is in the Cinque Terre area.
Oh, in Italy.
Yeah.
Yes, that was very nice
You
there.
talked about wanting to. You would like to return there. That was a really
That was a
nice
good place.
area
yes.
to stay in.
Small villages, and the transportation was a lot by foot.
Yeah.
Or boats from one village to another. There was a train going through there also that we rode. Just a local
Yeah.
train.
But this would like have been, for example, you would have flown maybe to Rome or
Yes.
somewhere in Italy and stayed around that area for a while and went to museums and cathedrals
Went on
and
to Florence and some of the other towns.
yeah, and then up the coastline.
of coastline.
Yeah. And I don't know if you went all the way over to France then. But
Not then.
yeah.
Not that trip.
The year I remember the year they would usually do their travel mostly in the winter. And my daughter, our first baby, was born in January in 1980, and I remember they were gone then. And they were over in Italy somewhere or Spain.
Spain.
Yeah. But you know, they didn't have cell phones.
What
or
did you
anything.
think of us leaving you in that
Well, I
condition?
thought you were probably having fun, but I really wanted to get a hold of you and tell you that she had been born.
Yeah.
And I really couldn't call you, but you did call us.
Yes.
So from time to time, and they would write letters. Yeah, there's a lot of. We were just looking through some of these old letters.
Airmail, aerograms.
Yeah, that they would write to us from everywhere. This one is from my sister, addressed to them in Kathmandu, Nepal, and this one too. And then there's some from different places in South America. This one's in China. So it was always interesting to see what letters we would get in the mail, where they would be coming from. Let's see, what else? Oh, we talked a little bit about friends you made, but you also had friends in New Zealand. Did they ever come here?
Yes, they did.
I thought they
One
did.
couple came
Yeah.
here.
Oh, and the Dutch couple.
Oh yes, that's right. And how did we? Oh, we met them in Zaire. They were serving
Oh,
there.
really?
They do a 2-year term as, I presume, volunteers.
Was he a physician there? Because
He was working with the medical group.
yeah, so they were younger.
Yes. Oh, yes. They had one baby when
One
they were there,
baby.
and ended up having 4. Not there, but after they got back home. And Who was it? I was thinking of another couple.
But you went to see them in
Yes.
Holland,
Belgium.
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 Okay, I was thinking they were Dutch.
No.
And they've been here,
Yes.
and they used your van
That's
to take
right.
a long camping road trip with
Right.
their 5 kids, four kids.
Mm-hmm.
I remember when they came over to do that. That was pretty exciting.
Yes, mhm.
Yeah.
I remember the little kids playing with your kids.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And they didn't understand each
No,
other.
but
They played.
They
anyway.
were playing on the swings or something, you know. It worked out fine. And they were a nice couple.
They were nice, and I still hear from them now and then.
Mm-hmm. You were going to say something about somebody else.
I was thinking we met somebody else somewhere, and I can't think now. Who it was.
Bernard.
Bernard, we met in our South American trip.
You know, I never have known if Bernard has a last name.
Chisewer.
Oh.
How did that come back so fast?
I don't know. I just remember them talking about this guy, Bernard, that they kept, he was American.
Yes, from Chicago.
Yeah. And they kept running into him, not literally, but by crossing paths
Yes.
in South America.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
From country to country, everybody would kind of move in the same route,
Mm-hmm.
and so we got well acquainted with him. We went to Iguazu Falls, and
Oh,
he was
really?
there. Yes.
Yeah. So, and then you saw him back in the States here too.
He came to visit us, and I think once when we were passing through Chicago, he came to the airport because we had layover time
Yeah.
to see us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember meeting him when he came here.
Yes.
Yeah. So that was always Bernard. I was always wondering where Bernard was. So what did you do for like shopping? Did you buy souvenirs or trinkets?
It was limited. Our rule was kind of, if you can't carry it, you can't have it.
Yeah.
From Jerusalem, I think was probably the only time that we sent anything home, and we bought a set,
Nativity?
nativity set.
Yeah, she has collected a lot of nativity sets.
Not from other countries, really. Well, some Mexico.
Yeah.
But sometimes they're hard to find. We were in Russia for a short time, and I asked there, and whether they weren't understanding what I was saying, but they disclaimed any knowledge of that. Maybe that was against the rules.
You were in Eastern Europe a few times too.
We went to,
Estonia?
no, your dad was in Latvia for a while on a short trip.
Poland.
Poland, and Bulgaria.
Bulgaria, yeah. Now that would have been interesting because
It
that
was-
was a long time ago.
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
And they were in Bulgaria. Had been under communist rule, and so that was very different. And we hope we helped them out a little bit.
Yeah, they would go sometimes on agricultural programs to help teach people how to make build co-ops or work on
That
their
was it.
crops and
How to improve what they were doing. For instance, one thing was just setting the gadgets on a combine so that there wasn't as much grain lost.
Oh, really?
Something simple like that.
Yeah. Well, you've been out and about a long time, and now you're sticking closer to home.
Right.
But I'm sure glad you got to go out and do those things.
I am too.
Yeah. And Daddy loved the adventure of looking things up and planning where to go.
That was a lot of it. The planning was almost as much as the trip itself. Yes.
Well, thanks for sharing all of that. It was really nice to talk about that and look back through some of these journals. So that might inspire somebody out there to start keeping a journal, because who knows where it'll end up. It might end up in a great big old notebook like this. So take care and happy travels, and look for some more videos. If you have questions for my mom or me, put some in the comments down below, and we'll get back to you. And let us know if you like the video or not. Take care. Bye-bye.